Welcome to Living Beyond the Invisible, a walk with Heather. I'm Heather Perrin, and this is the space where we will pull back the curtain on life with invisible disabilities. Each week, we'll explore the realities of chronic illness, the challenges that often go unseen, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward. Whether you're living with an invisible disability yourself, supporting someone who is, or just wanting to understand more, you're in the right place. Let's take this walk together. Welcome back to Living Beyond the Invisible, a walk with Heather. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into a reality that so many people living with invisible disabilities and chronic illness face every single day, but that remains so misunderstood, overlooked, and often dismissed, and that is chronic fatigue. And I don't mean the kind of tired you feel after staying up too late watching a TV show, or the kind of sleepiness that comes after a long day at work. I mean the deep, overwhelming, life altering exhaustion that sits at the center of so many conditions, dictating choices, limiting possibilities, and reshaping lives. It It's invisible to the outside world, but to those living with it, it's one of the most visible parts of daily life. When we talk about fatigue in the context of invisible disabilities, we're talking about something far beyond ordinary tiredness. It's not solved by a nap, it's not fixed with coffee, it doesn't go away after one good night's sleep. Chronic fatigue is persistent. It is unpredictable. It can come in waves. It can crash over you suddenly, or it can linger like a constant weight on your body and your mind. It's the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones, your muscles, your thoughts. It makes even simple tasks like getting out of bed, taking a shower, or cooking a meal feel monumental. And yet, because it doesn't show itself on the outside, people don't believe it's real or don't understand the severity of it. So let's start with how chronic fatigue shapes daily life. Imagine waking up in the morning already feeling like you've run a marathon. Before your feet even hit the floor, your body feels heavy, your mind foggy, and your energy already spent. That's the starting point for many people living with chronic fatigue. And from that point on, every single decision of the day is filtered through the lens of exhaustion. Do I have enough energy to take a shower today? If I cook this meal, will I have anything left for that appointment later? If I spend time with a friend, will I pay for it tomorrow with a flare that leaves me unable to move? This kind of calculation is constant, and it becomes second nature to those of us who live it. People with chronic fatigue become experts at conserving, rationing, and predicting energy. But the truth is, even with all that careful planning, fatigue has a way of showing up unpredictably, knocking everything off course. One of the hardest parts of living with this exhaustion is the invisibility of it. The world looks at you and sees someone who appears fine. You're upright, maybe even smiling, maybe functioning enough to go to work or care for your family. But what they don't see is the effort behind that appearance. They don't see how much it took just to get dressed. They don't see that you're sitting at your desk barely holding it together, counting the minutes until you can go home and collapse. They don't see the aftermath, the hours or even days of recovery that follow what looks like a normal activity. And because they don't see it, they often don't believe it. How many times have people living with chronic fatigue been told, "You're just tired, everyone's tired," or "You just need more rest," or "Maybe you should exercise more, that will give you energy"? These comments might be well meaning, but they show a complete misunderstanding of what chronic fatigue actually is. Fatigue and chronic illness is not just physical, it's mental, it's emotional, and it's cognitive. That's where terms like brain fog come in. People with invisible disabilities often describe days where thinking clearly feels impossible, where words slip away, where simple decisions feel like complex puzzles. This cognitive fatigue can be just as disabling as physical exhaustion. It can make working difficult. It can make socializing overwhelming. It can make everyday tasks like paying bills or following a recipe feel nearly impossible. And yet, again, it's invisible. From the outside, no one sees the fog, the slow thinking, the struggle. They just see someone who seems distracted or maybe even unmotivated. And let's talk about motivation because this is another area where chronic fatigue gets misunderstood. Fatigue is not laziness. I'm going to repeat that. Fatigue is not laziness. It's not a lack of willpower. People with chronic fatigue often want to do so much more than their bodies will allow. They dream of activities, goals, and adventures. They want to show up for work, for family, for friends, but their bodies simply won't cooperate. And when society labels them lazy or unmotivated, it not only adds insult to injury, it adds shame. Shame for not being able to keep up, shame for canceling plans, shame for needing rest when everyone else is pushing forward. That shame can lead to guilt, and guilt can weigh just as heavily as the fatigue itself. Now, fatigue isn't the same for everyone. For some, it's tied to autoimmune conditions like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. For other, it comes with neurological disorders, heart conditions, or conditions like fibromyalgia. For some, fatigue is a side effect of necessary medications. For others, it's part of recovery from cancer or ongoing treatments. And for many, it's a combination of factors. But regardless of the cause, the experience of chronic fatigue is remarkably similar. It limits, it isolates, and it reshapes what life looks like. For me, I have a little bit of mix of all of that. I have fibro, I have a CHD, and I am still recovering from my cancer treatments. Those aren't easy to recover from. But here's the paradox. People living with chronic fatigue are often some of the strongest people you'll ever meet. They keep going in the face of exhaustion. Most people can't imagine. They adapt. They find ways to keep moving forward, even if it's slower, even if it looks different than the path others are walking. They survive in a world that doesn't accommodate fatigue, that values productivity and speed, that praises hustle and busyness. Living with chronic fatigue in a society like ours is like running a race where everyone else has fresh legs and you're dragging weights around your ankles. And yet you keep running. That is strength. Let's also be honest about the emotional toll. Chronic fatigue changes relationships. Friends and family may not understand why you cancel plans, why you don't call back, why you need more rest. They may take it personally, not realizing it has nothing to do with them and everything to do with survival. Romantic relationships can be strained too, as partners try to navigate the balance between wanting to help and struggling to understand. Parenting with chronic fatigue is a reality many live with, and it can bring feelings of guilt because even though love is endless, energy is not. These are the quiet heartbreaks of chronic fatigue, the parts people don't see. And then there's work. Holding down a job while managing chronic fatigue is a challenge that can't be overstated. Some workplaces provide accommodations, but many don't. People push themselves to the limit to keep their jobs, only to crash at home, leaving nothing for themselves or their families. Others are forced to reduce hours or leave work entirely, not because they want to, but because their bodies simply can't keep up. And in a society where work is so tied to identity and worth, that can feel devastating. Now, I was off work for 2.5 years. I think most of you probably know that. I know I've talked about it in the past. I recently went back to work at the beginning of August. I am a special education assistant in the local school district. I am on my feet all day long. It takes everything for me to work, and I do mean everything. But then I feel guilty because I don't have much left for my family. And weekends, I am beyond exhausted trying to recover. That is something that most people with invisible disabilities live with every day. So, what can be done? Well, there's no magic solution. If there were, people wouldn't still be living with this reality. But there are ways to cope, to make survival more bearable. Pacing is one. Learning to listen to your body, to rest before you crash, to break tasks into smaller pieces. This can help conserve energy. Boundaries are another. Saying no without guilt, asking for help when needed, prioritizing health over societal expectations. And then there's community, knowing you're not alone, hearing from others who understand, sharing stories and strategies. That can make the invisible feel a little more seen. And I know you're probably thinking, Heather, you talk about these things all the time. And I will continue to talk about them all the time because they are important. Pacing is important. Boundaries are important. Having a sense of community is important. So you will hear me mention this probably every single episode. It is just that important. It's also important to push back against stigma. Chronic fatigue is real. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of ambition. It's not just being tired. It's a medical, physical, and emotional reality that deserves recognition and respect. Education matters, conversations matter, and advocacy matters because the more the world understands, the less people with chronic fatigue will have to carry the extra burden of disbelief. I want to emphasize something here as we begin to wrap up this conversation. Living with chronic fatigue is not a failure. It's not a sign that you're weak. It's not proof that you're just not trying hard enough. In fact, it's the opposite, my friends. Every single day that you live with this exhaustion and still show up in whatever way you can is proof of resilience. Whether you manage to go to work, to care for your family, to complete a task, or simply to rest and make it through the day, those are victories. They may look small to the outside world, but they are huge. And if you're listening today while lying in bed, too tired to move, feeling guilty because you didn't do enough, please hear this. Surviving is enough. Resting is enough. Your worth is not tied to productivity. You are valuable even in stillness. You are worthy even when exhausted. You are not invisible here. Thank you for joining me today on Living Beyond the Invisible, A Walk with Heather. If this episode resonated with you, remember, you're not alone on this journey. You can connect with me on Facebook and TikTok, where I share more encouragement, advocacy, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of life with invisible disabilities. And if you'd like to support the podcast and gain access to exclusive content, you can also join me on Patreon. All of those links are in the show notes. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.